The woods whispered our names. My best friend Billy and I were drawn to their shadowy depths. Summer vacation had just begun. We craved adventure. What better place than Camp Crystal Lake? Little did we know, terror awaited us. We packed our backpacks with snacks, flashlights, and a worn-out compass. Excitement bubbled inside me. This was our first time camping alone. We were finally free! Or so we thought. What would you do if you heard strange noises in the woods? We hiked deeper into the woods, our footsteps crunching on the fallen leaves and twigs beneath us. The forest seemed to close in around us, the trees growing denser and the path less clear. We were on an adventure, and the excitement was palpable in the air. Each step took us further from the familiar and deeper into the unknown. The air grew heavy, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. It was a rich, earthy smell that seemed to ground us, reminding us of the natural world we were now a part of. The mist hung low, wrapping around the trunks of the trees like a ghostly shroud. It was both eerie and beautiful, a reminder of the forest's ancient and mysterious nature. The sun began to set, casting long golden rays through the canopy. The light danced on the forest floor, creating a mosaic of shadows and light. It was a magical time of day, when the forest seemed to come alive with a different kind of energy. The birds sang their evening songs, and the rustling of leaves hinted at the nocturnal creatures beginning to stir. Shadows stretched like long fingers, reaching out to touch us as we walked. We found a clearing, a perfect spot to set up camp. The ground was flat and covered in soft moss, and the trees formed a natural barrier around us, providing a sense of security. It was as if the forest had opened up just for us, offering a sanctuary in its depths. "This is it!" Billy exclaimed, dropping his backpack with a thud. His excitement was infectious, and we all felt a surge of energy as we began to unpack. The clearing was soon filled with the sounds of laughter and chatter as we set about making it our home for the night. There was a sense of camaraderie, a feeling that we were all in this together. We struggled to pitch our tent as darkness fell. Giggles escaped our lips as we fumbled with the poles and pegs, our hands clumsy in the dim light. It was a challenge, but it was also fun, a test of our teamwork and resilience. The tent finally took shape, a small but sturdy shelter against the encroaching night. We were already feeling braver, more grown up. The forest, which had seemed so intimidating at first, now felt like a place of adventure and possibility. We sat around our makeshift campfire, the flickering flames casting a warm glow on our faces. We shared stories and dreams, our voices mingling with the sounds of the night. But a shiver ran down my spine. Something felt off. The forest, which had been so welcoming just moments before, now seemed to hold its breath. The shadows seemed to grow longer, and the silence became more pronounced. It was as if the forest was watching us, waiting for something. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. Why did the forest suddenly seem so quiet? The usual sounds of the night, the chirping of crickets, the rustling of leaves were absent. It was an unnatural silence, one that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. We huddled closer together, our earlier bravado replaced by a sense of unease. The forest, with all its beauty and mystery, had a darker side, one that we were just beginning to understand. Have you ever felt uneasy while camping? Share your experiences in the comments below. We huddled around our small campfire, roasting marshmallows. The night was still. The only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. The sky above was a blanket of stars, twinkling like tiny diamonds in the vast darkness. It was supposed to be a night of fun and laughter, but an uneasy feeling hung in the air. The flames danced in the darkness, casting eerie shadows around us. Each flicker seemed to bring the shadows to life, making them twist and turn in ways that played tricks on our eyes. The firelight created a circle of warmth and light. But beyond that circle, the forest was a wall of impenetrable blackness. It felt as if the darkness was watching us, waiting for the right moment to creep closer. "Remember that scary story Mr. Thompson told us about Camp Crystal Lake?" Billy whispered, his eyes wide. I chuckled nervously, trying to brush off the fear that was slowly creeping into my mind. "Yeah," I replied. "The one about the campers who disappeared without a trace." Billy nodded, his face pale in the firelight. "Do you think it's true?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "About the campers who disappeared?" "Just stories, Billy." I tried to sound confident, but my voice wavered. The truth was, the story had always given me the creeps. The thought of people vanishing into thin air, never to be seen again, was terrifying. But I didn't want to scare Billy any more than he already was. "It's just a story," I repeated, more to convince myself than him. But even as I said it, I felt a chill. It was as if the very air around us had turned cold, sending shivers down my spine. I glanced around, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows, but there was nothing, just the dark, silent forest. Still, the feeling of being watched persisted, making my skin crawl. The forest seemed to be closing in on us. The trees, which had seemed so friendly and inviting during the day, now loomed over us like silent sentinels. Their branches reached out like skeletal fingers, and the rustling leaves sounded like whispers in the night. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made my heart race. It felt like the forest was alive, and it didn't want us there. The crackling fire was the only sound, until it wasn't. Suddenly, there was a rustling in the bushes nearby. We all froze, our eyes wide with fear. The sound grew louder, closer. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to see what was making the noise. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the rustling stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, and the uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach grew stronger. What was out there, lurking in the darkness? We didn't know, and that was the most terrifying part of all. What would you do if you saw a figure in the dark? A twig snapped in the darkness. We both froze. The night was supposed to be a fun adventure, a break from our usual routines. We had set up camp in the heart of the forest, miles away from civilization. The fire crackled, casting eerie shadows on the trees around us. But now, the atmosphere had shifted. The once comforting sounds of the forest had turned sinister. Our laughter died in our throats. What was that? The forest, which had been alive with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves, suddenly felt oppressive. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves seemed amplified. We exchanged nervous glances, the flickering firelight reflecting our growing unease. Billy whispered, his voice trembling. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his eyes wide with fear. I nodded, unable to find my voice. The darkness seemed to close in around us, the trees looming like silent sentinels. I strained my ears, listening for any other sounds. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fire. My mind raced, conjuring images of wild animals or worse, something supernatural lurking in the shadows. My heart pounded in my chest. Each beat felt like a drum, echoing in the stillness of the night. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, my body on high alert. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. The silence was broken by another sound. This time, it was closer, more deliberate. It wasn't just a random noise, it felt like something or someone was moving towards us. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I could feel the cold sweat trickling down my spine. A soft, almost inaudible whisper. It was so faint that I thought I might have imagined it, but the look on Billy's face told me he had heard it too. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely more than a whisper. There was no response, just the oppressive silence of the forest. It seemed to be coming from the bushes behind our tent. The firelight cast long, dancing shadows, making it hard to see clearly. I grabbed a flashlight and pointed it towards the bushes, my hand shaking. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but dense foliage. But the feeling of being watched persisted. Fear coiled in my stomach. It was a primal fear, the kind that grips you and won't let go. I could see the same fear mirrored in Billy's eyes. We were just two kids, out of our depth, facing something we couldn't understand. The stories we had laughed at earlier now seemed all too real. What if Mr. Thompson's stories were true? He had warned us about the forest, about the strange things that happened here at night. We had dismissed his tales as just that, tales. But now, in the cold, dark forest with strange noises all around us, his words came back to haunt us. We huddled closer to the fire, seeking its warmth and comfort, but knowing deep down that it couldn't protect us from whatever was out there. Would you investigate strange noises at night? We grabbed our flashlights and shone them into the darkness. The beams danced across the trees, revealing nothing but shadows and leaves. But then, I saw it. A figure standing at the edge of the woods. Tall, dark, and unmoving. I gasped, my grip tightening on the flashlight. Billy followed my gaze. His eyes widened in terror. We both knew that we were not alone in the woods. Something was watching us. How would you react if you saw something ominous in the dark? The figure moved towards us, its footsteps silent on the soft earth. Panic surged through me. We scrambled to our feet, dropping our flashlights. The figure was getting closer. We had to get out of there. We ran blindly through the darkness, our hearts pounding in our chests. Branches whipped at our faces, thorns tore at our clothes, but we didn't stop. We couldn't stop. Not until we were safe. Have you ever had to run for your life? We didn't stop running until we reached the edge of the woods. Gasping for breath, we stumbled onto the familiar dirt road. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to light up the sky. We were safe. We never went back to Camp Crystal Lake. The memory of that night haunted our dreams. We never spoke of what we saw, but we both knew the truth. We had been hunted. What's the scariest thing that's happened to you in the wilderness? To this day, I still wonder what we saw that night. Was it just our imaginations running wild? Or was it something more sinister? Something that lurked in the shadows of Camp Crystal Lake, waiting for its next victims? The mystery remains unsolved. But one thing is for sure, I'll never forget the terror I felt that night. The woods hold secrets, dark, terrifying secrets. Do you believe in unexplained mysteries? Did that send shivers down your spine? If you're brave enough for another chilling tale, check out our next video. Want more chilling stories? Subscribe for more.